Okay, sorry for that slight glitch. We were just testing the mics and making sure everything was ready. So I think that gave you time to just grab a snack or drink some water and also invite someone. So if you have not invited someone after that break in transmission, then what are you doing? Okay, so quickly I'm just going to introduce what this conference is all about and what CrossPoint Innovate is all about. How many of us were here the last time with Onyeka, the founder of Farm Crowd? It was an amazing time. He really showed us what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure some youths now realize that entrepreneurship is not as much fun as you would think. It takes a lot of hard work. But I believe that somebody's passion was stirred up and vision was stirred up to do things great. Amen. So what is CrossPoint Innovate? As a church, we believe that, for what is happening now, we have realized that the church is not a building, obviously, because when the pandemic came, people had to leave the building and everybody had to do that. And, people have different views, should we have stayed? But the point is, we have to obey the government law, so everybody had to leave the four walls of that brick building. But what we realize is that the church is not a building, the church is the people, but the church is the body of Christ. So building the church is actually building the people. And that is one thing that is very, very important and paramount with us, that we are building people. The Bible says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Your light shines. It's not just for your light to shine. When your light shines, what do they see? They see your good works. And I realize that a lot of Christians are good at church but not good at life. And that is why we decided to do things to empower people with knowledge, empower people with wisdom, empower people with understanding, so they can make an impact in their society. They can bring solutions to the society. Remember, when you stop learning, you stop growing. When you stop learning, you stop growing. So I really believe that most of the time why people are not fulfilling dreams and visions of their life is because you have not been exposed to the right knowledge. Exposing yourself to the right knowledge and understanding and wisdom, drives a kind of vision and passion into you. So that is what is going to happen. For 45, 15 minutes, he can't throw everything or can't put everything in your head that he has put with others. That he has learned for over years. But at the same time, it will stir you up to begin to, do better things with your life. And the topic is very, very interesting. I know a lot of people like this topic because we are following the money bag. So this is very, very interesting. So I want you to get your pen, your notebooks, and invite someone now. Send this link to somebody else. We are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, and we are on Zoom. So at least one way or the other, you'll be able to share with somebody. So quickly share with somebody that something great is about to happen, in the sense that knowledge is about to be imparted and we are going to become better people. Right? So I will come back again because we are still doing a lot of things at CrossPoint Innovate. This is just the beginning of the greater things that we have planned. So we would like you to be part of us. We'd like you to, really follow us at CrossPoint Innovate as well. Somebody else will be coming to take us further with this conference. But before then, I just want you to try again to invite someone. I know I've been saying that. Some people, you just feel it's not pastor is not talking to me. It's you I'm talking to, right? Try and invite someone to be part of this conference. I'm sure, it's going to be a blessing to that person and a blessing to you as well. So I really want you to do that. Amen. Amen. Glory to God. So the next voice you'll be hearing is a very kind-hearted, lovely person. Her name is Dr. Yemisi. She'll take us further with what we are about to do. And just relax. Don't eat too much. Just take water beside you or coffee and get ready for an exciting time of knowledge. God bless you.
You're welcome to today's edition or today's program once again. We have a special guest of honor, like you've seen in most of the media platforms. And we have Mr. Seyi Akinwale in the house. He's here with us. I'm excited. You should be excited too, because we're going to learn a lot. We have so many questions for him. But let me quickly give you a rundown of who this person is, why we're so excited to have him, the bag of experience, the bag of knowledge. Just stay with me as I let you know who our guest is. So our guest today is Mr. Seyi Akinwale. As I said earlier, Mr. Seyi Akinwale is the Senior Vice President for GE Capital in Sub-Saharan Africa. In this role, he's responsible for growing the GE's capital business in the region with his expert knowledge of debt and equity markets. Prior to joining GE, Mr. Seyi was a director at PwC, where he developed and grew the deals practice in West Africa. He was also the vice president of a leading investment bank in Nigeria, where he executed various project finance transactions across key sectors of the Nigerian economy. Wow, I'm not done yet. Mr. Seyi holds a master's in finance and management from Cranfield University in the UK. He's a fellow of the Association of the Certified Chartered Accountants of UK and Ireland and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He's currently undertaking his executive MBA at the prestigious University of Chicago School of Business. His understanding of the key role of education plays in the development of nations, and this has led to him also, same person, setting up a special foundation, a social impact organization which seeks to improve the quality of leadership in Africa by increasing access to education of the less privileged children. Wow, this is awesome. Remember I said earlier, we have someone who is a bag of knowledge, a bag of experience, and more than that, a bag of impact. So let's just sit down, open our eyes and minds. We're about to dive into something very journey of knowledge and exposure. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Yemisi. Good morning, all. I'd like to say a big thank you to Pastor Ladi and the leadership of CPInnovate for the unique opportunity to be with you this morning and share my experience, my perspective with you today. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very delighted. On the call today, I understand that young people, entrepreneurs, who have either started a business and looking to expand it to the next level, or are about to start up a new idea and are thinking about how best they can use financing, how best they can access financing to make their dreams come true, how they can lever on financing and financing solutions. And I'll share some of my perspective with you. Pastor Yemisi was gracious with her background about my experience and perspective. And I have no doubt that you will learn a lot during the course of this conversation. It was just a discussion with you, sharing experiences. I have no doubt that you would pick up a few useful tips as we go along. In terms of an outline, what I'll be discussing with you today is around, one, to share with you my life journey, talking about some of my failures, some of what I do today, broadly, and why you should listen to what I have to say to you today. And then I'll talk about probably the most important lesson I have learned in my professional journey, which is around the key elements for business viability and financing. So you want to talk about how can you get access to finance? But before you do that, you first have to realize and understand whether your business help you in thinking through how you best develop those ideas, one, or if you're from a financing perspective, what goes on in the mind of finance providers when they are looking about your business concepts. And then I'll talk about, how do you best capture your audience? Because as a business incubator, as a developer of an idea of a business, you have various audiences that you speak to, or that are your target audiences, and they have different perspectives and different viewpoints. And what I'll be sharing with you is around who those different stakeholders are and what they look out for in your business. And then I'll speak around the investor universe. You have a business idea. How do you seek to raise funds? Who do you talk to? How do you find investors? How do you contact investors? And to also illustrate and to emphasize what investors look out for in your idea. And then what is very important, your first message to an investor, because a lot of people lose the attention of investors when they are not able to properly communicate in their first message to the audience, because this is a deal breaker. It's one that will largely determine whether or not you're able to hold the audience and hold the attention of a potential investor. And then I'll share with you my final points. My life journey, part of my failures, I think, are what has made me what I am today. One of those I like to talk about is the fact that I got dismissed from university when I was in undergrad at the University of Ife. At that time, I'd gone into Ife after my secondary school in Christian College. And what had happened then was that the school had tried to verify my credentials at my secondary school and wrongly checked the wrong year. And then I was dismissed from the University of Ife. What had then happened then was I didn't realize that I was sent out of school, and I learned later on. This was in my teenage years, so think about it. Young man, probably I think I was about 18 at that time, realizing that you were sent out of school and trying to fix that issue. For whatever reason, I had to do it myself. Eventually, I was able to show documentation to the school, and they were able to rectify that. But it took about 2 years. So I had to go through my third year and my final year in school without realizing or knowing whether or not I was still a student of the school. If you had the privilege of going through a public university in Nigeria, you would understand that our documentation were not the best. And it was not clear whether or not I was a student. But every day I would go into school, go write my test and exam in faith. And so, because when the school eventually gave me a letter trying to say that the rustication has been rescinded, they had the wrong matric number in there. And so that was easily one of the toughest periods of my life. And I share this experience with you because I know that on this call, there are many people who have gone through very difficult situations in their life. And to let you know that a failure never defines you. And it's important, I draw this context to you as we talk about the detail of the focus of my presentation, that you should never, ever judge yourself by failures. People talk about losing the war and not losing the battle, losing the battle but not losing the war. You need to have it in context and understand that you're a success anyway. And you determine your victory, you determine your future. When you talk about someone is a responsible person, what does that mean? It means someone who has decided to take action for his life. And you have to take action and responsibility. This is more important in a country like efficient support system. And so you can never really hold other people responsible. You can't hold your parents responsible because they did the best with whatever they were exposed to provide whatever you have today. You cannot hold the country responsible, even though, I can understand when people say that, our governments are not efficient. You have to think about how do you hold yourself responsible? How do you determine your success? And that's very important as you think about piloting your ideas and transforming your ideas into fruition. One of the other, failures people talk about, or I think about with myself, is how I managed to fail my professional exams at least, I think, a record 7 times. Today I'm a fellow of the F.C.C.A, member of the ICANN institutional body. But people never realize that I actually had to do these exams multiple times. I think the main reason was I never prepared rightly for it, because we were doing these exams while I was working. And so you would do marathon reading session before and you fail. But I was blessed to understand that those failures do not define me. So some people would have those same failures and then stop writing those exams. But for me, it was a course, it was a destination I had set for myself, and I was going to achieve that. I say that because, in life, people never really remember your failures if you don't dwell in them. And it's important you understand this. You have to understand that you determine your success, and exactly that's exactly the case. And so as you develop your business ideas, these are contexts you have to put in place. Now, in terms of my broad career accomplishments today, I have a broad experience around consulting, investment banking, project development, project financing, in developing PPPs. I have helped in advising and raising over $15 billion for SMEs and corporates. I've advised governments across the region in sub-Saharan Africa in how they can use financing to accomplish their infrastructure goals. I've also sat on multiple bank credit committees and investment credit committees for VCs. And throughout this process, I have learned a few reasons why, and I've seen a few reasons firsthand why investors choose to invest in certain businesses. And I have learned from other entrepreneurs on what they did right and what they didn't do as right to develop their businesses and achieve financing and be able to raise financing for their goals. And I will be sharing some of those lessons with you today. But I'd like to share a very interesting story for me, and I think it helps you in determining your why. This was, I think I was about age 20 in university, and I think it's easily the most pivotal story that has defined me. I was working around school, and a friend of mine said to me, showed me a scripture or told me about a scripture in the books. I didn't even realize it was in the great book at the time. And it talked about a poor wise man, and how a poor wise man, through his wisdom, overthrew a city, overcame a city, but no one remembered the man because he was poor. And it spoke about, and that was the first time I'd heard that scripture or heard about it. And for me, it gave me a lot to think about in my later years, how this man overcame a city with his wisdom, but was never remembered because he was poor. And there are a lot to learn from that story, right? The fact that you have to determine in your mind that you have to be a person of influence and leverage on capital and be a success for yourself if you're thinking about how to build legacy. And so I say that because some people say, I want to have a small vision. I don't want to expand my vision. I think it's selfish when you say things like that, because success is beyond yourself. It's not about because what you really need for yourself and your family is really small. But as you think about developing business, you have to think about impact, you have to think about legacy, and think about being an influential person. I know there's someone on the call who that will resonate with, and to understand that you're building beyond yourself. And so when you think about that, you think about dreaming really, really big and not having a mushroom vision. Even though you start small, but always have a mindset of a global mindset. It's very, very important. Now, I'll talk about the key elements that are very critical as you develop the meat of the presentation today. Again, this is really easily the most important lesson I've learned to date, and I'm happy to share that with you. In terms of what does it take to get a business viable? When you're looking to be ready for financing, thinking about, I want to access investors, I want to access financing. What do you think about? How do you think about your business being viable? And for that to be the case, these are the 4 key elements that needs to be in place. You have to think about the market. Does your business idea have a market? Is there a clear market? And can you define that market? And we'll talk about them in more detail. You have to think about the management. This is probably a very important element, because there are many ideas, very similar ideas, but often what determines the ability to execute upon the idea is around the efficiency of the, and that's a key element of management team in place before I want to start talking about people, about my business idea. Do I have the capacity? Do I have the understanding of the business to be able to execute this? The third one is technology. Do I have the right technology to get this business off the ground? Have I thought through my technology strategy? and we'll talk about that in some more. And I think the fourth and very important point is around seed capital. Starting with the market, one of the key elements you have to think about when you are developing your idea, because yes, we're talking about accessing financing, but before you get there, think about, do I have a robust market for the product or service I am trying to develop? Because ideas are cheap, but developing an idea is where the work is. And think about how you want to execute on the idea. Who is your potential customer base? What's the size? What is the rate at which the new products will penetrate the market? Can you obtain key customer commitments to demonstrate your market potential? Gym business is one people talk about because there's more increasing awareness amongst Nigerians on the need for a proper fitness regime. And so, because also there is the rising cancer rates that exist and lack of wellness and fitness. And so one of the great ideas people dream about or talk about is how can I set up a gym business or a wellness business. But to do that, you have to properly have defined your market. Who's your market? Is your market professionals, corporates, or is your market HNIs? Is your market mass retail? That you need to have as key in mind as you think through this. For that business I'm talking about, you have to think about what's the size of this market. There are existing people in the market today, but what's the size? Is the size middle income earners, or is the size HNIs? Is the size just a corporate market that you can get? You have to be able to clearly identify what that size is and what penetration exists. How can you penetrate the market? Because that brings me to competition. Because there are competitors, people who are existing in the market today that provide that same service. How do your products compare to the products that they provide today in the market? Are the products you are bringing to the market, do they already exist? And also, would others be drawn into the market by this product? And this brings to the concept of value capture and value creation. Are you creating a new business with this idea, or are you just capturing some of the segments that exist today by reason of this idea? You need to properly identify and segment that and be clear around what you want to do. The agri business is another interesting idea people talk about. We had the great presentation last week from Farm Crowdy. And if you want to get into the tomato business, for example, you need to be able to say, which kind of tomatoes am I producing? Who am I producing for? Am I providing for big, large corporates, or am I doing a retail market? You need to be able to segment that and understand what your competition is doing today. Are you capturing a new market, or are you trying to create your own business or your own market? That's one element you need to think about. Another is the management team, like I talked about earlier. Do you have the right team, and has that been identified to be able to manage this project, whatever you want to do? Do you have the right experience yourself? Or if you don't, have you gotten the right people in place to be able to get that done? Do you have the right skills in place? Do you have the right track record? Because as investors, whoever is bringing money into your idea, they want to know if you understand this business. Do you have a record of doing this business? Do you have a team who's motivated? Do you have a team who has the right relevant experience? I find it interesting when someone wants to get into the agri business because they love the business but don't have any experience in that business. You may not necessarily have that experience, but you need to get someone who understands that on the management team, because that's one key element investors will be looking at. What's the quality of the people that you have on the team? Are these people who have good ethics? Are these people who are honest? Do the leadership team have the ability to lead and organize resources? These are elements and key points you need to think about when you're driving and putting your management team in place, because there are points that investors will look at. Technology. What technology does this project require, and how will it be obtained? You have to understand how you're going to execute your project, and so understand, am I riding on a license that will be outsourced, or is there available technology to be able to execute this project? What's the price of this technology? Is that really available to me? How would I continually maintain this technology to achieving what I set out to do. That's an important element that you need to think through as you develop your idea, because investors will also be thinking about that. So I've spoken about the market, spoken about the team, I've spoken about technology. One key element investors also look at is seed capital. Where would the funding come from to build the projects you're talking about, to pay for the team, the resources, and to create a plan? This particularly also applies to those who want to develop the idea. You've started off with your idea and you want to take it to the next level. You have to think about aims, what people talk about. What's your commitment to this? What needs to be done to get this project to the point of financing, and how are you going to pay for that? One of the things investors also look like, do the sponsors have funds to contribute, or are you totally relying on outside donations? If you come to me and say you want financing for your project, and I say, how much do you need? You say you need 20 million. I say, how much do you have? You say you have nothing. Most times, I already understand that you're not going to move anywhere with that project. One of the rule of thumbs we have is that for seed capital to get your deal moving, you have to at least be able to raise 1% or 1.5% of the project cost. So if you're looking to raise 10 million, 1% of that is about 100,000. You have to be able to get that from yourselves, or through people who love you, or who can believe in you. If you can't raise 1% of the funds, you don't get the attention of any serious investor. And it's one thing, because that most times is not enough of the seed capital you require, but it is enough to get you moving. So it shows commitment, shows that at least you're committed and you have some exposure to the deal and to the project. And so that's what we think about as a rule of thumb. Now, this slide speaks around what various stakeholders look at. As you build your business plan, as you're developing your business, and you want to pitch your idea, because you would have to pitch it to various stakeholders. You're not just speaking to investors. To get a sustainable business, you're pitching to various partners. And so at least a few on this slide. One is your strategic partners and what they are thinking about. Your strategic partners will be thinking around, is this business viable? Do you have strong profit potential? And so you need to be able to, and this is very important for entrepreneurs, you need to be able to tweak your message for every stakeholder you're speaking to. For strategic partners, you need to think about, is my business viable? Can I demonstrate that the business shows strong profit potential? Am I clearly articulating my entry to the market? What's my entry to market strategy? My market entry strategy is the way we say that. Is that clearly articulated? To customers are not thinking really around that. Customers are thinking around, is your product of good quality? Are you charging me a good price? Is this good value for money? If I start patronizing your business, would you have a reliable source of supply? And so it's important that when you're speaking to various partners, you know what to emphasize. Because I've seen entrepreneurs who are speaking to potential customers and speaking about their entry to market strategy. The customers care less or not as much about that. What they care more about is really around, is your product good quality? Would it satisfy my need? That's one point to note. Suppliers, when you're speaking to suppliers, because sometimes, a lot of times you need inputs for your product. You think about they are concerned about your ability to pay for your raw materials, for the equipment. And so when you're speaking to a supplier, you have to demonstrate that you have capacity to pay, and so that they can also understand that they can streamline their products and to serve you. Because if you don't show a demonstration of ability to be able to pay for the inputs, then you cannot get guaranteed supply of inputs for your goods. Financial investors, which I'm going to own on for the next couple of slides, are thinking really about your return on investment. Does your business plan have a realistic exit strategy? And a lot of this summarizes what you heard last week Saturday around what is required to be put into the business plan. Now, the last point is the banks. The banks, when they are listening to you and listening to your business idea, they're thinking about, does this entrepreneur have the ability to complete this project? Because there are many abandoned projects. And so they're sizing you up and thinking around that. So as you speak to them, they're thinking about, do you have the ability to repay the debts? So as you're speaking to me and talking about your lofty dreams, I'm thinking about, how would this guy pay me? Does the numbers stack up? What sort of agreements are in place with the partners, customers, and suppliers? So I know that he has the right contractual agreements in place. And are they creating enhancements to help me limit my risk? And so that's part of the dynamics and the various metrics that the various stakeholders are thinking about. So as an entrepreneur on the call, what this helps you do is that when you're speaking to your various stakeholders, you have to understand the message you are projecting to them. If you're on the call and you have questions, please leave a chat on the Q&A section, on the comment section, and then we'll take it at the end of the call. So if you have any questions as I go through my presentation, please make sure you drop a comment, and we'll try and collate that and deal with that at the end of the presentation. Now I have my idea, right? You've spoken about your idea checks out. You think very well that you have the right technology in place. I can demonstrate that I have seed capital in place. I have the right management team. I can show you a market. How do I raise funds for this? And it's an important question a lot of people think about, because, again, ideas are cheap. It's around how do you execute on those ideas. And so I would share with you some options of ways you can raise funds for your idea and your business venture. One of it is family and friends. One of it, this is what some people call love money, right? You need, if your idea, if you're looking to raise less than $50K, less than 20 million naira, you need to, your first point of call should be family and friends. And most times, this group of people, not necessarily your immediate family and friends, these are people who are friends of friends or extended family members who believe in you or who believe in your idea. You have to find people who can actually take a chance on you. So sometimes it's people who are reciprocating gestures you did for them in the past. Maybe you are of good use to them in the past and they're trying to back you up. When you're looking to raise lower than that, less than $50K, your first point of call is family and friends. Again, don't necessarily your nuclear family, but always friends of friends. You have to be able to find and convince those people that to take a chance on you. And sometimes you play the emotional game and say, do this for me as a person. That is your first point of call when you're raising this sort of amount. The next option, if you're looking to raise above $50K, between $50K to $500K, are angel investors. Angel investors are people who, sometimes professional people, who have decided that they want to look for business ideas and invest in them for a guaranteed return or for a return after a period of time. Sometimes they look at getting about 30% return and seek to exit the business from about 5 to 8 years. In some cases, they are professionals whose day job is looking for businesses that are interesting, that are viable, and can be and can demonstrate and are viable and profitable, and seek to invest in that. In other cases, there are successful people who have done well in their jobs, and so they, apart from having successful career, they want to invest in other businesses, for the fun of it, to say that they have this portfolio for whatever motivations that they have. 3, because they want to keep their minds working on other sectors. And those form also another group of angel investors. When you think about approaching angel investors, you have to understand, what do you want to get out of this angel investor? Most times you don't just want their cash, you want their network, you want sometimes their technical ability, their technical contribution to the business. Sometimes you also want their connections also, and their ability to be able to help you influence your business to the next level. and that's for angel investors. So if you're raising anything between 50K and 500K, that's 20 million to 200 million, you seek to speak to angel investors. And the third segment is venture capital firms. Venture capital firms are different. So when you're seeking to raise above 500K to multiple of $1 million, you talk to venture capital firms. And we'll hone in on them in the next couple of slides. For them, they are not really focused on startups or are interested in really startups. They look for businesses who want to build a momentum. They look for businesses who have traction, who've demonstrated traction and are scalable, and think about and can demonstrate them guaranteed or returns in the regions of about 30% per year. Venture capitals, again, want to see a track, and then they can then help you in moving your business to the next level. And so they're very detailed in their due diligence process and very objective in how they make their decisions, their investment decisions. The last segment I talk about is government. This is really a very slow way to make capital. Sometimes there are grants, so lower rates of interest rates to be paid, subsidized interest rates, or grants to be made where you're only paying just the principal. But a point to note with government is that largely there are always very specific requirements for the government to be able to get funds from them. There are a lot of intervention programs that you find and you have, and they're always very specific. So maybe they are for the healthcare sector, for the agri-business space, also for small and medium scale businesses. You have to think about, does my idea qualify for the funds that are required to be done? And so that's the fourth space, which is government. One of the things I want to talk about now is what to do or what to think about when you're meeting an investor. And this is very important because we speak to entrepreneurs. There are lots of entrepreneurs, and as you find in this climb, a lot of Nigerians, people, Africans, are entrepreneurs by heart. We always think about what business can we start up. I guess the high unemployment rate also forces people to seek entrepreneurial options. Also, we just want to do something for ourselves, and for our families. And so, in speaking with investors, in speaking with entrepreneurs, I have found that a lot of times, most entrepreneurs are not understanding or do not have the right understanding around what investors are looking out for. And so I guess on this slide, I want to talk about what to have at the back of your mind when you're meeting with an investor. One is understand your target investor, and this is very important. If an investor is one that only seeks $10 million opportunity and more, if you have a $1 million opportunity, you shouldn't be talking to that investor because it's a waste of time. That's not his threshold. That's not his sweet point. His sweet point. He wants to seeks investments far above that threshold. So when you're speaking with an investor, you have to have done some research. It's really appalling sometimes when you find that people just speak. You find this guy is an angel investor or a venture capital capitalist, and you do not try to do some research beforehand to understand what sort of investments this person seeks to achieve, and what are his target investment portfolio. And so that is one thing you have to do about it. Think about what's his portfolio, what's his sweet point. One point I think about all the time is a lot of entrepreneurs talk to investors and make it about themselves and say, come and invest in me. Come and, it's all about me. That is never really an effective way of communicating or trying to get your investments done. You have to be able to change the narrative to understand what can I do for this investor, and make that the way you are speaking. One of the ways you think about it is, what sort of portfolio do they have today? Would your investment help him diversify his portfolio? What sort of things is he thinking about? Is he thinking about high returns? Is he thinking about diversifying his portfolio, like I said earlier? You have to change your narrative to how will it make the investor's life easier? It's not about you. And so once you understand life is not about yourself, you get a grip very quickly and understand that you have to tailor your investment, your pitch to the investors. One is also an elevator pitch. People talk about elevator pitch around how can I communicate while I'm in an elevator. So you get into an elevator, the length of time it takes you to get from a floor to another, you have to be able to make your points known very quickly. I think a lot of people from this climb do not understand that. We like to tell a lot of stories. We are very illustrative in how we speak. And so telling a succinct story that communicates your business plan is so important. And this takes practice, right? You need to be able to practice how you can tell your story in an elevator. So if a guy doesn't have more than a few minutes, how can I tell my story in a way that gets his attention? So get your elevator pitch ready and understand that, because a lot of investors have a very short attention span, and so you have to be able to tailor your narrative into a very short pitch. Nobody has time for. You have to think about it that way, and so it is around how can I narrow my narrative to hit on the high points. And I'll talk about what to communicate later on the slides when you're trying to do that. Second point is, do not try to oversell. People understand that when an idea is too good to be true, it probably is. And so when you meet an investor and say, this investment is the first of its kind in Africa, he already knows that this is a red flag. Or when you talk about this idea would revolutionize the world, maybe, but you have to be careful not to oversell. That is a point I kind of emphasize. Stick to the fundamentals of your deal, of your project, of your business idea, and then try and sell the idea without necessarily overselling same. The third point is know your numbers. I was sitting in a VC credit committee session a few weeks ago, and saw a very interesting entrepreneur who had a great idea, but didn't know his numbers. It was quite appalling. I hadn't seen that in recent time, where you have sold your story, but you just do not have a grip of your numbers. You don't understand what it takes, how to show profitability, how to demonstrate how long your break-even period will be, what are your liquidity numbers, what are your cash conversion numbers, and so as an entrepreneur, you have to know your numbers. Now, you don't have to be the CFO, you don't have the full grasp of that, but you have to know your high-level numbers at least. And then if you have to say, I will get my CFO or my accountant to work with you in getting to the cost of the numbers, that's fine, but you sure have to know your numbers. And, in furtherance of the elevator pitch I said earlier, you have to be able to summarize your company at the back of your business card. So it also keeps you detailed. What few words describe you? What few words describe your business? You have to be able to write it down at the back of a business card without getting into story. Who are you? What problem are you trying to solve for? That is very important when you're meeting an investor, and explain to them what you need to do, what your business is about. Next, I talk about the important things investors look for in a winning business plan. Some of it I mentioned earlier, but I'm stressing this slide so that you understand what investors are looking out for. Life is run by a lot of principles, and I've found that once you can address most of these issues, that I'm sharing today, you are in a very great place to be able to raise the financing that you require to get your business moving. One is executive summary. An investor wants to look at your executive summary, and without looking into your main business plan, they want to understand what you're talking about, what your business is about. And we talk about the grandma test. Your summary has to be very simple, less of jargon, but clearly articulating what your business is, the way you will tell your grandma. So if you imagine talking to your grandmother and trying to explain your idea, it has to be very simple and easy to understand. Warren Buffett often says he never invests in a business he doesn't understand. And a lot of investors are that way. if you try to overly complicate your idea or overly complicate your business plan or your business idea, it doesn't resonate with people as much. And so what you have to really do is get a simple and easy to understand business idea and leverage on the grammar test, simple, articulate summary that shows clearly what the business is about. I think this is very important, and one thing that investors look out. When I can understand easily what your summary is about, then I want to now look into the detail of your business plan. If I don't understand your summary, I'm more incentivized, or motivated to look through, the detailed plan you have. Two is management team. I keep talking about this because it's very critical. And I say that ideas are not novel, the management team are. Because every idea you want to bring, or most people talk about, most of the ideas have been, affected somewhere else or the other. You think about unicorn companies today, there's a Paystart, there's a Flutterwave. You find multiplicity of ideas, of innovations across sectors. And so if I'm supposed to back up, and if VC is trying to back up a company, I want to see who is going to be driving this business. Who are the team driving this business? Do you have a team driving it? Because ideas don't transform themselves into a well-executed plan. Ideas often are around the fact that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Ideas ensure you need a management team to be able to execute on the right business plan. Another point is around financials. Do not build on unrealistic expectations on your financial plan. Because once I look at your assumptions and your summary, I then see that I think your project summary and your project assumptions are very aggressive and unrealistic. I lose interest in the reliability of your numbers, and you don't keep my attention. And so one of the things you need to be mindful of is realistic expectations when building your project assumptions. Another point is your use of proceeds must make sense. I once was looking at a business plan. Someone wanted to raise $500K, and as part of the use of funds was payment for four of those of the management team at $100K. And so that didn't make sense to me. So most of the funds are just to pay for the team who are developers and also equity owners in the business. And that's one of the things that make investors nervy, right? And quite nervous. You need to ensure that your use of proceeds makes sense and is very clearly articulated. And also most important is that there is a clear exit plan. Investors most times don't want to be in your business. They want to have a line of sight on how they can exit from your business, at a certain point in time. And so having a clear exit plan is so important. Again, if you have questions, please you can send an email to the CPInnovate Gmail address, or leave a comment on the Q&A section. One of the other things I want to talk about is how to find angel investors. And with this, I want to give a few tips on how you do that. One of the tips, in these tips, you can use as many strategies as you can, but it also always points you to ideas around what you need to do right to be able to find and locate investors that will be interested in your business idea. One idea or one important tip is always to look local. Only in rare cases should you go global. And I think this is one of the issues that we sometimes face. A lot of investors are writing to Warren Buffett or to Jack without first understanding or tapping into the local investor space. First point and call always is local. If you're looking to develop an idea, go local, look at the investors that you can find locally and that can believe in your idea. Now when you seek to expand, then you can do that, thereafter. the case in point are Paystack and Flutterwave, who everyone talks about, unicorn delights in fintech space. You know, closing on the international funds they got now. Before then, they had to tap into local investors, local capital in developing their ideas into scale before then tapping into the international VC investment space. So very important, go local when you're looking around investing locally. It saves you a lot of time and it helps you build traction to your idea. A third tip that you have to think about is that angels don't fly alone, right? And so when you're thinking of angel investors, you have to think about how can I get into the club of angel investors? If I can get the attention of one angel investor, it's very important and very impactful because then they can refer me to others. You have many angel investors that co-invest with each other. So if you can get the attention of one, they can then invite their friends or co-investors to come invest in your plan. So you have to think about it. Angels never fly alone. So get one good local angel investor, and they can then bring in other co-investors to come along with you. Then I talk about strategies. What are the strategies on how to find angel investors? And this is very, very important. One is using online platforms. The internet has just helped in revolutionizing our mindset and the optionalities that we have. And being able to use online platforms to search for angel investors is very, very critical. There are platforms that host contact details of angel investors, and finding that is very, very critical. Also, finding a local group of angels is so important to the point I talked about. And it's not very hard to find sometimes. Again, the best way, and maybe I should have said this earlier, the best way to get introduced to an angel investor is through introduction. But for some of us on this call, we don't have that leverage, we don't have that network as yet. And so in the absence of those network, of being able to get introduced, you have to be able to put some of the strategies I'm speaking about to work. Using online platforms, like I said, finding local group of angels. You can find this sometimes at local startup events and meetups. There are a lot of times where you have some groups, and I think in Lagos, for example, you find that Lagos Innovate, there are groups of events where you will find investors coming into the room and entrepreneurs likewise. And so you want to go into those kind of events to be able to engage with investors yourself. One other important idea is telling everyone. I know, in this part of this climb, we are very spooky around who we share our ideas with, and think about if I tell someone my idea, someone will steal my idea. I really don't share that sentiment as much because ideas, again, are cheap. It's around how you can execute on the idea. I always say, tell everyone your idea. Everyone, I should know someone, whoever the person is, and I should know what's your idea, what you're trying to solve for. What are you trying to solve for? And so that in case I find, because you know who you know, but you don't know who the person knows. And so telling everyone your idea is so important. Like if you are building a business, let everyone or let people know what you are up to. And that's so important. Again, as I say that, I'm thinking about the climb, the African climb where we live today. But I think that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, and I'm mindful of that. In being able to tell and share your ideas with people and letting everyone know what you're doing. I should know this person, Anselm, for example. I should know what Anselm is thinking about. I should know what idea you're developing. So if I find a network, if I find someone who also can plug into that space, I can always connect you with that person. So it's a very important one. And I think the last idea is really probably the most important, which is leverage on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has become such a very powerful tool that you can find everything you want on LinkedIn in terms of who are the angel investors, who are investors, who are the active investors, what are they doing today, what are they invested in. You want to go on LinkedIn and really just search. I tried it myself. If you just type investors, angel investors, you will find people who know people and who may be able to introduce you to those people on LinkedIn. And so being able to leverage that platform is super, super important, and it's free for everyone to be able to use. So understanding the strategies to be able to find investors and using this tip is very critical. Remember, go local. Only in very rare cases do you want to go global. Understanding angels fly alone, don't fly alone, is very, very critical. Understand that once you can capture the attention of an angel investor, they have the ability to be able to bring in co-investors along, leverage on online platforms, leverage on local group of angels, get into startup events and meetups where investors come into and get ready for your elevator pitch, when you do, and tell everyone your idea and search on LinkedIn. Now, I have found an angel investor. How do I contact the angel investor? This is very super, super, super important, because I find that finding angel investors is not really the problem, because a lot of people, if you're plugged in, you can actually do a Google search and find out who are the investors. But how do I contact the investor? That's very, very, very critical. And like I said earlier, you have to be short, you have to be precise, and you have to be relevant. Be short, precise in your message, and relevant. And so what I want to share with you is, one, the worst way to do this, the okay way to do this, and the best way to do this, right? The worst way to contact an angel investor is via Facebook, via Instagram. It is a no way to do it. The chances of not getting their attention is very high. You don't want to leverage those platforms for that use. You can use that for getting intelligence, but you don't want to leverage for your first engagement using Instagram or Facebook. It makes you feel good because you think you will have sent a message to the person, but they're not the most, it's really the worst way to do it. Another really poor way to do this is really via a cold call and a text message. I think it's not efficient. Because if I don't know you and you just call me and say, I have this business idea, I will probably be less interested. And when I hear your name, I just think you're a stalker, right? And so leveraging social media platforms, phone calls, sending a cold text message to the person, because the person, you have to think about investors, they get ideas, requests, proposals all the time. And just sending a cold message saying, I have this idea, come and invest. It's never effective in reality. Again, it makes you feel good because you think you're making motion, but those motions are never really progressive, right? So that's really, in my view, the worst way to do this. An okay way to do this, just okay way to do this, is sending an email. With an email, the person may take you seriously because they see that, okay, this guy has this idea, is a formal guy, especially if your email is well written. And I'll talk about what you need to be able to communicate in that email when if you do choose to communicate via same. It's one way to do this. LinkedIn also has become an acceptable way to communicate. People understand that it's one way to reach out to your target audience. So it is an okay way also to communicate to people. But the best way to contact an angel investor is always been proven to be an introduction. If I respect someone and the person introduces you to me, I'll take that conversation very important because of the quality and the pedigree of the person who's introducing me or introducing the entrepreneur to myself. Introductions are very important. With LinkedIn, it's important that you can use LinkedIn to find out who knows the person that you target investor you're looking to get to or get across to, and then seek for them to make an introduction on your behalf. With that, you make a huge impact when you eventually contact the angel investor. Something, or you communicate your idea, you have to be able to be very succinct with your idea when you're communicating, and also be able to articulate that in very few words, enough to gain the interest of the investor and leave a lasting impression with the investor. And so, in my view, these are an okay way and the best way to be able to contact angel investors when you can, once you've located them. Again, one important point is don't use more than 2 ways to engage, more than 2 of these ways to engage a particular investor. So I would say very strongly that if you have sent an email, or don't go and check them on Instagram and send an Instagram message or a DM. That is more stalkerish than anything else. If you send a LinkedIn message, don't after sending a LinkedIn message, I send you an email message, I send you a text message. Again, it shows it's a red flag from the investor standpoint. Again, it shows tones of desperation. So one thing I often say is, be very deliberate about how you want to engage with the investor, and don't use more than 2 ways. If you're trying to do one, use another method to buttress. Once you've done that, you have to leave it alone for a while, and don't be stalkerish in how you engage. Now, I speak around what you put on your first message, and this is very critical. Around, I'm trying to engage and get the attention of an investor, and a lot of entrepreneurs will find this very important. What do you want to say in that message? One thing I think you need to communicate and find a way to communicate is your traction. The fact that you've started, people like things people have started. No matter the scale at which you've started, you want to show and communicate traction. That, okay, this is my idea, this is what I have done, I have achieved X and X and X output, I'm seeking financing to be able to get to this level of output. Traction is super important. Another thing you want to communicate is your market. In your email or in your conversation, you have to clearly articulate what the market is, what is the potential market size, and what's the potential target customer base, who are you targeting. An investor wants to know and understand that you fully articulated and thought through this, understanding what your market size is, in addition to traction. Another thing you think about also is the idea. You also want to be able to communicate the idea. These are 5 things I think you need to really communicate. 1, traction. 2, market. 3, idea. What's this idea? What are you trying to solve for? Is one other point that you want to communicate. 4, what's your product? Okay, I'm solving for this. This is my product. I'm solving for the food crisis that exists. My product is maybe tomatoes, for example. You have to be clear around what the product is, what the market is, what the idea is, and what traction you've made. Okay, I have started doing this for 2 companies. If I can raise this amount, or once I raise this amount, I can expand, and I have gotten letter of interest or expression of interest from certain number of investors. And so 4 important things you have to put in your first message. But I think the most important one is also on the team. Because again, like I said earlier, I keep emphasizing that investors understand that there are a flurry of ideas out there, but the team is what can make or mar the idea come into fruition. And so these 5 components are things that you have to find a way to be able to, in a summarized form, communicate. So when you're sending a message, ensure that it hits the 5 notes that I mentioned. 1, you're clearly articulating that you have a team in place. The product is clear in the message. The idea is clear. The value proposition is clear. The market size is clear, and the traction you've made so far is absolutely clear. Now, in rounding up, I'd like to articulate a few points to you, right? Even though I've told you about the importance of raising financing, what this does to your business, how it can take you to the next level, I think it's important that I also give you a good context on how you go about this, right? One is, I strongly advise that you do not raise money to start a new business. I think it's a big mistake. If you're starting a new business, you don't start up first by trying to raise money. Why? Because equity investors who understand that you're starting this new business will not give you the right valuation that you may seek. They'll probably take a huge stake in your business. Banks will also price for that risk and charge you huge interest rates once I know it's a startup that has shown 0 traction. So when you're starting a business, don't think about, first of all, raising funds. I think first of all, you do not raise money to start business. You want to focus your time on starting the business, right? Because what I've seen sometimes are people, you have a good business idea, you do not focus on starting that business. All you are thinking about is, I need money for this, I need money for that, I want to raise capital, and then forget the business that you should be developing and starting. It's very important and an important differentiation to be made. That first of all, focus on starting the business alongside your equity raise. One, because equity raise also takes a lot of time. It's a full day's effort. It's always a full-time job. And so sometimes when you focus on just raising capital as against starting a business, you get distracted by so doing. One of the things I talk about is starting small, like I said, proving the concept, and then raising funds to scale up the business and expand. It's a much safer and much easier route to raising financing. So you want to get started by proving the concept. I want to start, again, example I use, a canteen, tomato canteen business. You can start that with your small resources you have and sell it small, prove that it is acceptable, people like it, and then seek to scale it up. That gets people's attention. You want to start an online business. It might be better to get a friend who can help you develop the idea, develop the portal, and then start on a smaller scale, and then seek to expand as you've shown traction. Proof of concept is so critical in when you develop and articulate the work that you're doing. You need to show substantial proof of concept. Again, it's easier to raise expansion money than startup capital. And so the points I've been making is really around how you can just get the business started, get it off the ground. And money is really never an hindrance. I always talk about that. It's only an hindrance in your mind. And so just if you're really passionate about what you do, you get started with it anyway. It might not be at the level you have. You keep a worldwide, a global focus, but getting started cannot be overemphasized. People like to see traction before they invest in your business. Thank you very much. I hope this session has been very useful for you. And I hope you've learned a few tips that you can apply and use for you in developing your business ideas and transforming them. And so we'll just take questions. If you have questions, please leave them in the Q&A section, or send an email to crosspointinnovate@gmail.com, and then we'll deal that in the next section. Thank you.
Okay, so welcome to the question and answer segment. Thank you so much, Seyi, for a wonderful, very educative, session. A couple of things just resonated with me. Okay, I like the fact that you said LinkedIn is very good, but people just don't use it right. So sometimes you get messages. I'm a busy person. You're saying hi, and you expect me to just respond to hi, or hey, beautiful. It's a professional network, So thank you for a very awesome tip.
Thank you.
Obviously, because I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm going to be a bit selfish in the first question, just the first question only. And it was just, how do I build, a successful career in investment banking and consulting? Because I'm sure you've inspired so many people with the knowledge. So can you just give us a tip on that?
I think principles that I've said and as I continue to build my career in the financial services space includes diligence. I think that's one important thing. I think people underestimate the fact that your colleagues are your biggest testaments. All the jobs I have gotten to date have been referrals from people either I've worked with or have had some interaction with. I've never really had to really apply for any role. It's always been about referrals. So I think in building a career, you have to realize that your colleagues are watching you. They're watching your ethics. They're watching your dedication to the work, and they would always form your biggest reference point and help in how you grow and how you develop your career is I think one important point that people underestimate. I think that's one point. I think second is a fact, of course, you have to be curious, you have to broaden your network, you have to try and study, get the right professional qualifications, because I think those things buy you credibility more than anything else. Helps to open the door, and then your ability to do the work is what separates it.
Okay, super, great. So, I mean, during the course of your presentation, you talked about know your numbers, you told us not to exaggerate, not to under-exaggerate also. However, one of the things I find is that in Africa, and particularly in this market, is the lack of data. So how do I now begin to get data about the size of the market? Are there any available free tools you recommend? How do I really go about it?
It's an important point and a real challenge that exists to a lot of business owners, because the lack of available data has also impeded investors in being able to access the market, and for entrepreneurs to articulate what the market size really is. The challenge in doing business in this region is that you have to be able to develop your own data yourself. And so most times you would have to go into the market and do your surveys through primary means, through secondary means, and get that data yourself. Because also, one is availability of the other, two is reliability of those data. As an entrepreneur, you have to be careful about the data you can rely upon. There are broad macro data available in the market today through the Bureau of Statistics, but for specific information around your market, around your target segment, entrepreneurs are encouraged to seek to develop those data points as much as possible by themselves.
Okay, great. So native intelligence, very important.
Extremely.
Definitely. So I mean, I'm going to leave this session. I'm going to go and bash my dad, and I'll tell you why. That's what I really, really respect and hold in very high regards. Definitely professionally also. Is my dad has always said, don't mix business and family together. And you talked about raising funds, right? And right from a very young age, if my dad should take something from you, he will give you back with an interest. If my dad had to take something from my mom's business, he will pay for it. Now you're telling us to raise funds from loved ones, and I'm sure a lot of us have fallen in that trap of giving money to a loved one, story, come back again, story. So should we really put that emotion of, oh, it's my brother, it's my sister? I mean, we do, but I'm just saying, or should we also say, you know what, I'm going to start charging interest. I have a friend who started an organization just from a lot of friends asking him for money. It's like, I'm working for this money. He said, charge interest, and it's growing to something very profitable.
Yeah.
For Africans, we're very communal, we're very family orientated. But what would you really, advise long term?
Yeah. I think indeed. No, you're right. I'm in support of your dad because I think it also helps in discipline. When you are charging interest. I have a friend who only borrow you money, and it's like a contract. He will send you an email, documents it. This is the day you said you're going to repay me back or this money. And so, in terms of how you raise money, one you often start from what you have in your hands. From what the Bible story about Moses, what you have in your hands. And typically what you have in your hands first are your friends, your family. And being able to leverage that is so important. Most times you find that when you're even raising money from family and friends are never really a nuclear family. Friends of friends that you know, other people that you've encountered, people that you went to high school with, people that you went to perhaps university with, who are doing relatively well or better or in the same group as yourself. Being able to capture that is so important. And yes, this is what I talked about. I love money, leverage money, guilt trip money, whatever it is. You have to be able to find people who want to take a chance on you. Because if I am a third party, I haven't met you before, and I'll first look at who do you know that has taken a chance on you. If people that know you better than I do are not taking a chance on you, why should I? Exactly. And so you always have to prove that you're trustworthy by being able to attract money from people that know you and within that friends and perhaps family.
So I feel like a recurring thing because when I ask, okay, how do I build a professional career in investment banking? You talked about diligence. Now you talk about people being able to trust you. So character is very, very important. And I think if I had given you money before and you had used it well, the chances of me giving you again without interest are quite high.
It's a point I think I emphasized in my slides also in the team section. I think one of the things that living this climb we don't really understand. I think maybe our parents understanding the importance of a good name, understanding that you have to be mindful, very mindful around your credibility as a professional. Because some people you think you can swerve or take advantage of one person, and because you can do it, not realizing that what gets around, it's a small market, especially if you're thinking about raising funds in Africa, and investors they don't fly alone, they fly together. And so the word gets out very quickly that I borrowed this guy this money this day, he never repaid, and he also did not communicate. And that also doesn't buy you a lot of leverage in future when you think about further expanding on your capital requirements.
Okay. Awesome, great. So we talked about knowing your market, the market size, and all of that. If a market is saturated, would you outrightly tell people not to go into it? So I'll give an example of fashion, right? So everyone, fashion business in Nigeria is massive, So would you tell people if it's a saturated market, just don't go in, or what would be the disadvantage in terms of raising funds in that regard?
So it depends on what your strategy is. And we talk about value capture or value creation. When you're going to the fashion industry, for example, are you seeking to develop and create a new market? Is this
ready to
wear, or as supposed to be bespoke? Is what materials are using? Are using tie and dye, something creative where people have not thought through? And so are you creating a new market? If that's your strategy and it's clearly articulated and you can define and you have tested that it works, people will want to back you. Also, if value captures your strategy and you're thinking about, okay, The target markets actually patronize different industry or different fashion designers today, but they are too expensive. So you may have done a survey or a questionnaire that justifies that you can produce this same quality of work at a lower price, and you are willing to capture that market. It's also a very valid strategy, and investors would look to back you up for that too.
Okay, great. So you talked about, I mean, we talked about angel investors, you know, and venture capitalists, and you talked about, you know, government intervention funds.
Yeah.
Are there any particular ones available now that you can recommend, you know, or where can we go to even find out about this? You know, this is like new information.
So interestingly, the CBN has a very updated website that talks about the various intervention schemes. And the challenge with this is they are interventional, they are seasonal. They are often used to correct, you know, inadequacies that exist in various segments. You know, like I said earlier, it's sectoral. So right now, if you are looking to do something in the healthcare space as a result of the pandemic, there is a fund for healthcare developers that you can leverage on. There are funds by banks who are trying to help people who have lost out from the pandemic. So if you're looking to do an investment in that sector, there are some banks that are targeted to support you in that light. There are some small and medium scale entrepreneurial funds. The CACs, which is the Agri Fund, is one that has been talked about a lot more. There is a manufacturing fund. So there are buckets of sectoral funds that exist. That a quick Google search, again, we sometimes don't take advantage of what we've got, which are
information on your fingertips.
Yeah. And that is one quick way to be able to check for government funding. Again, I advise that it's often a slow way to get funds because of the bureaucracy that exists, the processes, and so except you have a targeted requirement and targeted fit, it's not one that your business should be predicated upon. Is what we're talking about. It's one that you can take to leverage on cheap source of funding, but not one that you can always stay predicated upon.
All right. So something I just wanted to comment on. In Nigeria, we talk about hustle, tenacity. Don't let anything push you down. If you survive in Nigeria, you can survive everywhere else. No, you're telling me I can't cold call. I can't drop a text message. I have to be introduced. You know. I mean, don't you think? And I'll say this from a career perspective. I had a friend who wanted to change it. He was literally very frustrated where he was. And was willing to, you know, just resign. I'm like, your family. I don't know about your wife, but I love you. You can't pay school fees. That love will diminish, you know. But what he did was literally call up, you know, MDs of some banks and said, hey, you know, the ones he knew people, you know, introduced and just said, hey, I mean, I have this value and I think it will help your organization, you know. Can we have a discussion? I had a discussion with five who gave him an offer. I took one and it's fine. So now you're saying that I get the feeling because I get emails and I'm like, God, how many of these emails do I get? But is there
head of someone had that kind of audacity before now, and so he was interested, and I also played to my strengths. I think I was more convincing in person, and so that got me on a foot in the door and conversation, and I got that job. Now, what I was speaking to the most is really around institutional investors and serious, credible investors. Most times it's not an effective way. It's a way. Sometimes you can get by with it, but like you rightly said, the best way is introduction. Like I said, it gives you the best way to be able to get a foot in the door. If you can get someone to introduce you to, or for you to have a direct conversation with them. If you can't get that best way, an okay way again is to send an email or like I said, a LinkedIn message, because it's deemed if you can get your target message across. Now a cold call on email or a text message, it's an option, but it's after you don't think that you can get other options. It's the way I think about it for entrepreneurs and getting businesses done. Even for a job, if you call me and say, anyway, I used it, but I don't think that it's the most efficient. You can be lucky. There was exceptions to every rule. Sometimes it's an inspirational move, and you have to follow your gut. Again, these strategies are guides, but you also have to follow distinction. Intuitiveness is also very important, in how you seek to execute, and going with your gut feel also. Your leading of the spirit is also very, very critical.
Okay, great. So thank you. Just before I end this segment, I mean, you've talked about how entrepreneurs can raise funds. You know a lot about businesses. Do you have any business of your own? That's the first question. I'm trying to get to know you better.
So I've invested in other people's businesses because I'm in a full-time employment. I don't run a business actually because I don't have the time. Also conflicted, but I've invested in a few small businesses.
Okay. So that's one thing. I want to get to know.
Boards also on some others.
Okay, great. So that's one thing. I want to get to know three things about you that you didn't share during the segment. So tell me other two, and then we'll end the segment. So on a happy, good note.
Three things about me that I didn't share.
So you said one. Which is other than your professional career, you have some investments.
Yes. I think the one I like talking about is the foundation. I've got this foundation which I set up as a platform to provide education to children from economically disadvantaged homes, and myself and friends and people of like minds understand that the future of Africa is at stake. Right now, we have over 30 million children that don't have access to education, and so what we are trying to do is to help put a dent to that number. So myself, a lot of friends, a few corporates are coming together and providing access to education to these people. We feel that leaders are a reflection of the people. We complain about leaders all the time, and then elect worse ones than the ones that we thought were bad. And so, except you change the people, you can't change leadership. And so started this group called the Special Foundation, which is actually providing education to less children from economic disadvantaged homes. Some of the children we are providing education to are children from whose parents died in the Boko Haram fights, and children whose parents were policemen and didn't have a severance to be able to take their kids to school, or loss of the breadwinner in the home. And we're just trying to make a contribution to society. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm proud of the fact that despite the fact that we all can complain about something that isn't right, we're trying to be part of the solution of the problem, and trying to educate the future of the country is one thing I talk about.
How do we plug in?
I think it's through partnership, through advocacy of what we do. Looking at the website, the Special Foundation with ORG, I think there's a lot of information on there around people can participate, because it's really a platform for people to participate and in trying to contribute towards solving this need. One other thing about me that I haven't mentioned is I think I know I love Arsenal Football Club. Very passionately.
Really?
We've gone through a lot of bad patches over the last couple of years.
A lot.
What team you support? What team you support?
I don't. My dad used to support Arsenal as well, but my husband doesn't watch any because he gets too entangled in the competition. So now I support no one.
We've been paying
For the times of Henry and
I think Arsenal has a rich heritage, and I think there's a class that comes with the football club that I love and I appreciate, and that's why I support Arsenal. We say we don't choose our family. I think clubs are like one of those that Arsenal found me, and I'm happy to be found by Arsenal Football Club. So that's another one.
I hope you leave this room safe. There are no other club supporters here. But perhaps maybe we'll play a football match, raise funds, for businesses, and be able to give back. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Seyi, and I hope that when we invite you back, you will say yes.
It will be an honor to be back.
Thank you very much. So keep your questions coming. If we can't answer it now because we've ended the segment, you can also email us and catch us next month, and there's still a closing segment that is to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate you, and